So today we're going to be looking at another developmental stages of Erikson's theory. Hi, welcome back to my channel, Mental Health with Melissa. I'm Melissa. If you're new here, first things first, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for more content. I post videos every single Sunday and Wednesday, as you can see here on the screen. And subscribing to my channel really helps me get mental health information out there to our communities of color, breaking down that stigma, and also LCSW test prep for those that are becoming licensed clinical social workers, and mental health information in general about those that are interested in the profession. So today we're going to be looking at another developmental stages of Erikson's theory. I get a lot of requests on development, stages of development questions, and I have done a couple of other stages of development for other theories and other theorists, but today we're going to focus on Erikson. So if that's something that you're interested in, please stay tuned. Okay, so let's go ahead and get right into it. As you know, I like to read the question, but before I do, feel free to pause here, answer it, and then compare it to my question or my answer so that you can kind of see where you're at in terms of test taking ability and information. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I already highlighted some of the key phrases or key portions of the actual question, because as I always mention, a lot of the time the answer is within the question. Alan feels alone and goes to therapy to discuss why he feels no connection to others. According to Erikson, Alan likely did not master this psychosocial development stage. So we're looking for the stage that somebody feels connection to others, so that we can respond to this question: what stage did he not master? So option A, initiative versus guilt. So according to Erikson, initiative versus guilt is the third stage. So somebody in this stage is going to be around 3 to 6 years old, and the main stage during this time is to set out goals and carry out plans, and exerting too much control can really result in disapproval from adults and feelings of guilt. Those feelings of guilt then really prohibit someone from effectively making plans or setting goals in the future. So, does that sound like what's going on in this particular stage? I don't think so. Let's move on to the next option to take a look at that. Option B, industry versus inferiority. So this is the fourth stage of Erikson's developmental stages, and somebody in this stage is going to be around 6 to 12 years old, and the person's main task during this particular industry versus inferiority is to develop competence by beginning education and learning to do things on their own, which really helps with pride and confidence. And a person's group also begins to be a greater significance. So a friend group is going to be really important and really helps develop a person's esteem. And if adults do not support the child in this stage, so if the parents or the caregivers don't support the child during this stage, then there's a sense of inferiority and the child doubts their abilities. So could that be it? Well, we're talking about doubting abilities, so I don't think that's it. Let's move on to option C. Option C, identity versus role confusion. So this is the fifth stage in Erikson's stages of development, and identity versus role confusion is between 12 to 18 years old, and so this is during the teenagers' years, and the main objective is to learn roles that they will occupy when they become an adult, and develops a sense of identity, and friendships help them explore various identities. And so a successful identity versus role confusion stage would be having really good values and remaining true to one's own identity. And if somebody in this stage fails to develop this sense of identity, then they're going to have a really confused sense of self. So does that sound like what we're talking about here? Let's move on to the last option, option D, just so that we can compare all of these answers. Option D, intimacy versus isolation. So in Erikson's stages of development, intimacy versus isolation is between 18 years old to 40 years old. So during this stage, this is when forming intimate relationships with others is really key. So someone will develop comfortable relationships and have commitment and care towards others, and failure to develop intimacy will lead to isolation and feelings of exclusion and not being connected. So this actually sounds really similar to what's going on up here, where Alan is not having a feeling like a connection to others. So because of that, all of the other ones are going to be no's, and option D is going to be the correct answer. So I wanted to actually go now into a little bit more detail about all of the Erikson's stages of development. So Erikson actually has 8 stages of development. So the first developmental stage is trust versus mistrust, which is between birth to 18 months. And so that's just what it sounds like. This is going to be a very key moment for an infant where they develop feelings of trust towards others, or if they didn't have a great development of that from their primary caregiver, mistrust. The second stage is autonomy versus shame and doubt. So this is 18 months to 3 years old. So during these stages, the task is to really develop independence, and a lack of this can lead to shame. The third stage is initiative versus guilt. So as we kind of mentioned earlier, the primary task during this stage is to set goals and to make sure that there is some sort of control, so as to not have feelings of guilt during development of relationships with others. The next step is industry versus inferiority, which is 6 to 12 years old. And as mentioned in one of the options there, the primary task is to really develop this competence in the education system. The next stage is identity versus role confusion, which is 12 to 18 years old. And this is when a teenager develops a personal sense of identity. Intimacy versus isolation is 18 to 40 years old. And again, as the option that we chose in this vignette shows, that the connection here is very pertinent and important. The next stage is generativity versus stagnation, 40 to 65 years old. And during this time, the primary goal and objective in this stage is to participate in activities that lead to purpose. And if that's, not something that's happening, then it can lead to despair. And lastly, ego integrity versus despair, which is 65 years old to death. And this stage really focuses on our seniors and older adults, those in the gerontology population, looking back at life and seeing if they have fulfilled a lot of things. And if not, it will lead to hopelessness and depression. So Erikson's developmental theory, just like other developmental theories, has many strengths, but also has many criticisms and challenges. So I definitely encourage you to look more into what those are. But if we're talking very briefly about it, one of the major strengths is that not only does it take into account the childhood developmental stages, but it actually also includes different stages of life throughout your life until death. Now, a lot of the developmental theories don't do that, so that's a pretty interesting thing. And then one of the major downfalls to it is that how does this relate to different cultures, and how does this relate to somebody that may pass away earlier in life? Does that mean they won't be able to achieve other stages? So definitely ask yourself these questions and study more. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Again, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, managing mental health matters.